Hello, hello, and welcome back to my Esky platform, where my intention is to engage, to share, to connect, to inform, and to hopefully empower. So, as I've mentioned in previous videos, I just wanted to create a space where people talk and we start a dialogue about whatever the topic might be. And on this occasion, it happens to be my journey with endometriosis. And if I can hopefully help someone out there who's suffering with the same condition find a way, how to cope better, or how to be able to manage the condition better through learning about somebody else's experience, then all well and good. In my previous video, I spoke about the day I got engaged and ended up quite sick shortly after it happened and had to rush home, basically collapsed through the pain. And in this video today, I'll be going into some detail about a period of my life when it was a fairly difficult time, and the condition took hold and took me to new heights, new levels that I hadn't realized was possible. So I remember I'd often describe endometriosis as in two formats, if you like. So I'd say, for me, speaking personally, at best it was every month I would get excruciating pain, and this would often mean having to take time off work, school, and being fairly immobile for a good 48, maybe 72 hours at times. And this would last for maybe roughly a week or so. To, at worst, when it was a case of still suffering the excruciating pain, but that pain would carry on beyond my period. So typically, every month when you get the pain, it would only last for the duration of your period. However, when things started to go seriously wrong, I ended up at a point in my life where the pain was just more or less continuous and was intensifying as it went on. And that's what I'm hoping to go into a little bit more today. And that started when I was, as I say, I was in the throes of planning my engagement party. I happened to be at my dressmaker's one day and the pain hit once again. I remember not thinking anything of it, but it got pretty bad to the point where I had to be rushed into A&E. And the very first day I was taken in, I was put on morphine immediately. The pain was that unbearable. I was kept in for a few hours and then I was discharged, came home, and I think I was okay for maybe a day or two, and then the pain came back and I had to be rushed into hospital again to accident and emergency. Same thing happened, and came home, and a few days later it happened again. But on the third occasion when I went in, fortunately I was seen by a doctor who'd seen me on the previous two occasions and immediately realized that something was clearly amiss and decided to do more in-depth investigations. I was sent off for a laparoscopy. A laparoscopy is keyhole surgery where a hole maybe this big, small holes maybe the size of no more than a 5p coin, much smaller actually, just maybe in terms of the width. Those holes are inserted into your tummy, the lower abdomen area, and they've got cameras attached to the end of the instrument that's used to puncture holes in your tummy, so they could see on the screen what's actually going on. And they were hoping that they could rectify the issue, maybe by burning out the offending bits where the endometriosis had caused adhesions or cysts and what have you. But it turns out that it actually spread everywhere. And in my case, it spread all over my bowels. My bowels were the issue. And that would explain why every single month, in addition to the normal pain that I'd get, I had noticed over the years that whenever I was on my period and whenever I happened to open my bowels during my period, the pain would escalate to the point where it would become beyond bearable. And so, yeah, when they confirmed that following the laparoscopy, it didn't surprise me at all. So, unfortunately for me, it meant having to have open surgery, which meant them making a fairly big cut to my abdomen to go in there and effectively cut a section of my bowel. I think it was about this much, and it was going to be joined back together again. So I had, as part of my medical team, I had a gynecologist and I had a bowel specialist as well, who would have a series of consultations with me just to explain what was what. And I remember my bowel surgeon sitting me down and explaining that once the bowels are very funny organs, and once you've tinkered with them and you perform surgery on them, they're never going to be the same again. So in other words, she was trying to prepare me and say that my bowel pattern was never going to be the same again. If I was a regular person in terms of opening my bowels, maybe first thing in the morning or last thing at night or what have you, that was likely to change. In addition to that, it was likely that I would be suffering with either constipation or diarrhea. It could go one way or the other. They just don't know. But she just wanted to prepare me for it. But what was really out of the blue, and what I hadn't bargained on, was when she told me there was an outside chance that having to cut this much of my bowel and join it back together again, there was a danger that there could be complications, shall we say, with the bowels. And if that happened, there was a chance, although she said it was a small chance, but she still said there was a chance that I may need a bag, nevertheless. An ileostomy bag. You may have heard of colostomy bags. It's slightly different. Colostomy bags are attached to the colon, which is the large part of your bowel. An ileostomy bag is attached to your ileum, which is a small part of the bowel. And in my case, because of the way the endometriosis had spread and where it was formed, that was where the bag would likely be attached, if indeed one was needed. Now you can imagine having to deal with that kind of news, going from, I'm just about getting my head around, suffering with endometriosis, dealing with all of that, to now thinking that, so I'm going to have issues with my bowels as well. So yeah, that was quite concerning, shall we say. Nevertheless, we went ahead with the surgery, and it's funny, I came across a journal. I had been journaling way back then. And on the day before the surgery, I remember having to meet with my doctors. And I've got here, seen by a myriad of nurses and doctors, including the anaesthetist, to discuss pros and cons of an epidural versus morphine in terms of pain relief and general anesthesia. Then seen by, and I've got the name of the junior doctor there, the junior house officer, who begins a series of pricking all over my arms, trying to get a cannula in for drips and all sorts the next day. This is all part of the preparation that you go through. I mean, I had to actually go in the day before the surgery just so they could get me all prepped up. And then the fun and games. On the day of the operation, I've got here, I'm given an enema for the first time ever. I've never had an enema. But because it's bowel surgery, I was told that the bowels had to be completely empty. I don't think it's possible to get them completely empty, but as empty as they could, so they could obviously perform surgery and everything could be as tidy as possible. Had an enema, And not a nice experience, I've written here, not surprising. You get the urge to go almost immediately, and after the previous night of a non-stop opening of bowels, I'm feeling rough to say the least. And yeah, that was when my fun and games started. And that was just the beginning of what was a chapter of mishaps. And I can only describe it as a fairly large dose of misfortune, because usually you could have major surgery, yes, and the worst you could hope for is recovering from that surgery, which is not easy in itself, because when you're cut open, your entire system almost goes into shutdown mode, and then you need to build yourself back up and heal. That's why they call it recuperating, convalescing, and you need that period of time to allow your body to start to come to. You've been cut open. Imagine having a cut when you fall. You know, that cut will take a good few days or a good few weeks, right, to heal. But imagine when they cut your tummy open and go in and cut bits out and join them back together again and move things and push them this way and that way. That's bad enough. What I hadn't bargained on was complications, and I suffered some complications. And they took me down a road that I didn't realize was, I hadn't envisaged. I didn't know what to expect, and it was a fairly upsetting period for me, and not just for me, for my family as well, and close friends. But I just want to say that throughout all of that, but for the grace of God, because I honestly don't know how I would have come through it. At the time, while I was going through it, it was difficult to see a way out, and it was difficult to see how I was ever going to come back to feeling normal again. And if somebody had said to me that in a few years' time, you know, you'll be looking back on this and you'll be speaking quite happily, well, not happily, but you'll be talking about it quite comfortably in front of a camera to, you know, spread the word and hopefully make a difference to other women out there, I would have shot them dead. I wouldn't have thought that it would be possible, first of all, for me to make a full recovery like I have, and I want you to know that that is possible. You can hit rock bottom, and you can spring back up again. And yeah, it just goes to show also the power of the human body to heal itself. I learned so much about our internal system, how it works on a physical level, on a mental level, emotionally, psychologically. So in my next video, I'll go into a little bit more detail about some of the complications that I suffered and how I came through them. And also, more importantly, I'd also like to say that I'm planning to interview some other people who helped me on this journey. I very quickly came to realize that over-the-counter remedies were not going to be the way forward for me. And by pure serendipity, I came across, you know, certain individuals who specialize in natural remedies and the likes and such like. And it really made a huge difference to my recovery process, which, by the way, lasted years. So yeah, I will leave it there for now. Stay tuned for the next video, but in the meantime, stay blessed, and I shall see you very soon. Take care. God bless.